On Saturday, you had cultural identity building and cultural confidence. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I was particularly drawn to the topic details that talked about where you were going to talk about who am I? Because I'm going to launch off of that a little bit. So how did some of you answer that question? Who am I? And now let me ask everybody, why does everybody have a reason why they can't come on camera, like a valid reason? Okay, because it's really hard to talk to a blank screen. So if we're talking about etiquette and how you make other people feel, it is really hard for me to just talk to a blank screen, I'll be honest. So unless there's a real reason other than you just don't want to be on camera, that's really not a bad. If you're coming to a virtual class, I just don't want to have my camera on is really not a valid reason. And if I'm out of line, I'll let Christine and Michael tell me so, but it's really hard to talk to a blank screen.
A lot of point there, yeah.
You know, I can't see any facial expressions. I can't see body language, which we're going to talk about. I'm literally looking at blobs of white on the screen.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind when you're dealing with other people, right? And you're on virtual meetings when you get older or virtual classrooms like this. It's really hard for the facilitator to talk to a bunch of white blobs on the screen.
Mrs. Lorraine.
Yes.
So in the back, the reason why I keep my camera off sometimes, because in the background we have like construction going on, so I don't want it to like pop off in my video. That's why I keep the camera off sometimes.
Sure. Okay. Is anybody going to talk about what it was like to do the class on Saturday where you talked about who you are, like who answering that question, who am I? What did you learn about yourself?
That I'm a strong, confident person, and I'm not afraid to show who I am.
That's amazing. So when you think about that, who I am, what kinds of things did you think about when you said to yourself, I'm not afraid to show who I am? So what? Expand on that. Who are you in your opinion?
Just someone that likes to be themselves, not gonna change because of like people to fit in.
So you feel like you are authentic in the way you move through your day.
Yeah.
Okay, I love that. I love that. Okay, who's
For the who am I wrote, I am Chinemere Juan Grant. I am a proud Nigerian. I am a curious person. I like to face challenges. I like to try new things, and I am proud of myself. That's what I wrote for who I am.
That's great. Good. Okay, who else? But I want to talk about body language. We'll start with body language. This is kind of an extension of the in-person class we did a few weeks ago, or a couple weeks ago, where we talked about deportment. Remember, it was posture and entering a room and standing. So body language is a nonverbal way of communication, right? Does anybody remember what percentage of communication is nonverbal? We talked about this quite extensively. What percentage of communication? Yeah, thanks, MK. 93% of all communication is nonverbal. Just think about that for a minute. So if you have a pie and the whole pie is 100%, 93%, if you cut away 93% of that pie, that's the nonverbal part of communication with other people. only 7% is verbal, what you speak. So I emphasize this because nonverbal communication is very, very important. It says more about you than the words that you say, because people take more meaning away from the nonverbal than they do what you say, the verbal. So this is where body language comes into play big time. So body language is usually open or closed. Body language is what will tell people, are you approachable or are you unapproachable? Do you make them feel good? Do you make them feel uncomfortable? Do you look confident? Do you lack confidence? The list goes on and on and on about the conclusions that people will draw about you based on your body language. So, Christine, so everybody, I want you to watch because you can only see me from here up. So I'm going to demonstrate body language just using half of my body. Christine, I want you to just talk to me just like if we were alone here and you're asking me, or you're telling me a story from the weekend. So actually start to talk to me about the weekend.
Hi, Lorraine.
Which I'm interested in anyway. And everybody else, I want you to watch my body language as Christine is talking to me.
Hi, Lorraine. How are you today?
Hi, Christine. I'm great. How are you?
Very well, thank you. And how's the weekend?
My weekend was good. I just stayed around the house. But tell me about your weekend, because I want to hear about the fashion show.
Well, for me, I was out of town. We had to go to Halifax to visit our daughters and spend some time with them. And while we were there, we visited a few places and we met some new friends and got much deserved rest that I haven't been able to get in a long while. So yeah, it was both busy and restful for me.
That sounds wonderful. Okay, what did you notice about my body language as Christine was talking?
You were listening to what she was saying and you were keeping eye contact.
How do you know I was listening? Okay, let's back up.
Well,
Who's talking?
Cinnamon.
How do you know I was listening?
Because of the way you were positioning yourself.
Yeah. So I leaned in. Right? Leaning in is a very effective body language that does let people know you're engaged, you're interested, you're listening. So just that simple, I moved my body forward maybe 3 inches and I kind of tilted my head. And what else did I do?
I think you were nodding. And so I think I'm sorry, I'm in my night, so I'm so tired. But I see that your body is kind of open to what she's saying. I can see that, if I would be like this and I'm trying to be like this, that would make maybe the person who is talking think is she even listening or not? But then if you do it like this, your angle of how you position yourself and the angle of your phone or your device, it's making us seem like you're actually listening and you're nodding and then you're blinking your eyes in a way that, yes, I am listening.
Bang on. All of that. All those little things. Nodding my head every once in a while. Yes, you can tell I'm listening, I'm hearing, I'm understanding, and making the eye contact and the leaning in. And even this is, I'm interested. Oh, that sounds good. I want to catch every word. So what if I had sat like this? That doesn't say, tell me more, I'm interested. That's oh my God.
It's you're in an interview and you're I'm not going to be impressed by this candidate whatsoever. Right.
This is closed body language. This is closed. Mm-hmm. Unless you know me well, this does not say I'm approachable. This says, I'm very serious. I don't have any time to fool around. Approach at your own risk. Right? This does not say welcome. So just that simple act of putting your hands on your lap, like open, ideally, like open on your lap. Isn't that much different? Just that, just going from here to here. Whole different body language. Sometimes we have little quirks about ourselves and just patterns of doing things that we don't even realize how people are reading us. And it's really important to kind of begin to be aware of what your body language is so that you can know how you may be interpreted. Even something as simple as how you hold your head. So if I'm sitting up straight and I'm kind of looking straight ahead, that can look confident, right? Competent, like I know what I'm doing. Even if I just go like this, that dilutes my look of confidence. I'm like, I don't know, maybe, right? Just the tilt of your head. Now, standing up, body language is very telling. If you stand both feet planted firmly on the ground and your hands are in your pockets, that would be a closed body position. That would be a closed body language. That's not real approachable. You should never stand with your hands in your pockets if you're with somebody that you don't know well. Because psychologically and without knowing it, without realizing it, hands in the pockets can mean you're hiding something, you're not fully disclosing everything. Like this goes back to like ancient times. So a more approachable body language would be both feet on the ground. What does that say about somebody when you see them both feet flat on the ground? Anybody want to take a guess? Both feet firmly planted on the ground, hands by your side. What does that say?
Does it say, would it say like confident? Someone's confident?
Yeah, grounded, confident, solid. Yeah, serious. Yeah. What does it say? And even if you have to stand up in your room or wherever you are and try this, what does it say if you're standing up and you're sort of leaning over on one side, like all your weight is in one hip and the other knee is like bent? What does that say? A little more casual, right? Not so serious, right? A little laid back. So all of these body movements and body language, and it literally, that's what it is. It is the language of your body. It's that very important nonverbal communication. Hands have a great deal to do with that too, right? Like different hand gestures, that's nonverbal language. You have to be really careful with hand language or symbols and signs with your hands, because now that Canada is such a multicultural country, it can be really easy to offend people with body language, because what is cool in Canada might not be cool in Nigeria or India or Asia, right? So you have to be a little politically correct with hand gestures and body language with your hands these days. Has anybody encountered that, where you might do something that's cool in your country or where you're from and it's not so cool here, or it's actually offensive?
Yeah, because maybe there's some certain like hand gestures that might be okay for you, like you're used to doing it, or you're used to like doing it with a family member, but to someone else is like insultive,
Yeah.
or something else that is just mean. So that's
Yeah.
different.
And there are many examples of that, You know, I know some things that I grew up being taught, you know, I know are offensive and insulting in other cultures. And so I try hard to stay away from all of that, you know. It's like, if it's not necessary for me to do it, why would I want to do it if I know it's offending somebody else, that I would never want to do that? I mean, we can't be perfect all the time. And we are now all together from so many different nationalities and different parts of the world, which I think is wonderful. But it does layer on extra responsibility for all of us to at least be minimally aware of where other people are coming from, and that what you do and say can be offensive. So at least try, you know, at least try to not be like that, to do things that may be offensive. Okay, anybody else have any observations before we move on about body language? You know, standing, arms crossed, hands in pockets, showing that you're interested. Anybody else have any other things they want to mention about body language? Before we move on, did you know that there are 7 universal facial expressions? So that means that when they did this study, it was quite comprehensive. And this study group went into remote areas around the world where the people had not been influenced by the modern world. And they were able to gauge that there are 7 universally understood facial expressions, meaning everybody around the world, regardless of the language they speak, recognize these facial expressions. And they are happy, sad, angry, disgusted, surprised, contempt, and there's one more. I always forget one. But I just thought it was interesting that around the world, facial expressions is a universal language. It doesn't matter what language you speak. People will understand what you're worried. That was it. People will understand what you're conveying by your face. So body language and facial expressions are a language all on their own.
I think
and again,
you
remember
missed fear and anger.
Sorry, Michael, go ahead.
That you missed fear and anger. Fear or anger?
Fear. Yes, fear. Yeah, I think I said anger, but you're right. I missed fear. Yeah, thank you for that. And I think if we all think back, like when you see somebody who is scared, fearful, language doesn't matter. You know what fear looks like, right? So it's just being aware that at all times your body is communicating with other people. Yeah. Okay. Triple threat. We've kind of, sort of talked about this, but not in this context. So I call it the triple threat because I think people who are really good at this are what I call charming people. And they have a way of getting other people to like them. And it's eye contact, a nice smile, and a good handshake. You know, since COVID, handshakes now are a little bit of a discussion to be had. But in the business world, handshakes are still really a thing in North America. Anyway, we still do handshakes. The only thing I teach differently now about handshakes is if you're not going to shake somebody's hand, first of all, that's okay. Most people understand. The big thing now, though, with handshakes is if you're not going to shake somebody's hand that's coming towards you, you need to give them lots of notice, right? If you're going to go in with with an elbow or a knuckles, you have to give that person lots of notice so that they don't feel stupid when they come in for a handshake and you pull away. That's the etiquette piece about the new way of handshake or no handshake. And that's I came up with that. That's my etiquette rule because I've seen it happen and it's not pleasant. I've seen two people coming at each other to meet. One puts their hand out and the other one declines. And it's not good. It makes the person feel very silly, embarrassed, awkward. I seen it happen in a crowded room and it's not good. And in that scenario, the fault is with the person who decided not to shake hands but didn't give any warning. Zara, go ahead.
So in that situation, how would you like let the person know beforehand? Like how would you let them know? How would you give them notice?
Yeah.
And also, if you were in a situation where you don't want to shake their hand, but you forgot to give them notice, do you just go ahead and shake them like as usual?
If you're asking me, I would. Because again, I don't want to make other people feel uncomfortable. So in that scenario, if I truly did not give them a little bit of a heads up that I wasn't going to shake hands, I would shake hands. There's too much of a downside, especially if you're just meeting somebody. There's too much of a downside to leave them hanging. It's so uncomfortable. Have you had it happen to you or have you done it to somebody else?
No, I've seen it happen before, so yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, it wasn't like too much of a serious situation, but it was just like the person felt like embarrassed, and I also felt embarrassed for them. So, yeah.
Yeah. So when you think about that scenario, is that really something that you want someone else to feel or that you want to feel yourself or that you want to make another person feel like? No. And especially when it happens in a crowded room and the person feels dumb and it's this whole thing. I actually saw it blow up like kind of bad. Where there were apologies that needed to be made. And it's just a bad scenario when it could be so simple. It's just kind of having it top of mind. It's you saying, and I don't mean you particularly, Zara, but it just requires you to say, I don't want to shake hands. So it is incumbent on me to make sure that I don't make other people feel uncomfortable because this is my decision to not do it. So when I see people coming towards me and they extend their hand, I give them lots of time where I can do elbows, knuckles, kind of make light of it, like, sorry, but whatever is going to be the approach, you have to decide it beforehand so that it rolls out very naturally and not awkward and not making a scene. You also don't want to do this. Sorry, not shaking. No, have in mind what you're going to do and how you're going to handle it so it is easy. But my message with this is, if you're not going to shake hands, that's okay. But the responsibility falls on you to have the plan to take care of the other person.
Okay.
Make sense?
Thank you.
You're welcome. And so interesting that you saw that play out too, because I did too, and it wasn't fun to watch it. You're right. There's that secondhand embarrassment or third hand, whatever you call it. Not fun when it's something that could be so easily taken care of. And what I think about in situations like that is that person did not have enough consideration for other people to even think about how she could have handled it differently. That's what the message really is to me, is that person thought so little of the people she'd be engaging with that she didn't even think about not embarrassing people. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other thing, because I've done a lot of speaking to like the MBA classes that come out of UNB, so a lot of students, in fact, most students from other parts of the world. And so I talk about all of these things that are kind of have a cultural nuance. The other one is eye contact. So I get it. There are religions, there are all sorts of reasons and different ethnicities that can't or don't want to, or for whatever reason, don't do eye contact. And to that, I say this. If in North America, you choose not to make eye contact with people you are having a job interview with, or new people that you're meeting, people you're going to school with, professors, people you meet on the street. Again, that's your prerogative. There's nothing saying you have to do it. But I'm here to tell you that if you take that position of not making eye contact, don't be surprised if you have a little harder time getting ahead than other people. Because in North America, not making eye contact is synonymous with they're hiding something, they're not trustworthy, they're making me uncomfortable, I never know what to think because they won't look at me, they're not listening. So it does create a whole vocabulary. And then what happens is you end up having people try to figure out for themselves in their own mind what's going on. Which one of those scenarios is right? Do you understand what I would love someone to chime in on this, because this is really important, because it can be a touchy subject. Anybody have any thoughts about eye contact? Do it, don't do it, was taught not to do it, don't have a problem doing it? Like, what do you think?
I was taught to have eye contact whenever you're having a conversation. Because it shows that you're being respectful to what they're saying.
Yes.
Especially if you're going for a job interview, you also need to have eye contact. Like now, when I was doing a practice interview for school, I was looking away most of the times, and the interviewer asked me to stop. And I was like, when you're going for an interview, you need to have eye contact, because that's one major thing like they look out for.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Eye contact is so important, so important. Arimo?
She actually made a good point there. So, eye contact is sometimes it depends on where you come from the part of our world, from the African side. When you make eye contact to an elder, it doesn't show respect, okay? But over here in Canada, North Atlantic, Canada, this part of the world, Western world, you have to have a very sound eye contact to show that, okay, I'm engaged, I know what I'm saying, I am confident, I know who I am, so it depends on where you are and where it's contextual, it's actually positioned. So it depends. Yeah.
Right. And that's why I work it into all this training, because I do understand that a lot of this is, a lot of these things are cultural, and it's not right or wrong. It's just that this is how we do it in Canada. And eye contact is a very, very important thing. It just indicates, first of all, confidence and competence and all those things you just said as well, Michael. Being engaged and listening. So it is crucial that people get comfortable making eye contact. Arimo, go ahead.
In my culture, I was taught not to roll your eyes. Like if you're in a conversation, don't roll your eyes, because it shows disrespect. You don't care about what the other person is saying.
Yeah. There's a psychologist, and I forget who it was right now, but I learned this years ago from reading something where they said rolling your eyes at somebody is the physical equivalent of picking them up and slamming them to the floor. That's that's the equivalent. If you were to translate eye rolling to being physical, that's what it's done to that person. It is highly dismissive and disrespectful, and says whatever you're saying does not matter to me, right? So thank you for that. That is an excellent point.
Yeah, Zara had a hand up too.
Yes.
Oh, I was for the eye contact conversation, I was gonna say what Mr. Michael said, eye contact in can be seen as disrespect because like the culture for like respecting people older than you is different in Nigeria than it is here. But I
Yeah.
know that here, when it comes to eye contact, it does show a lot of confidence. And it shows, like what he said, that you know who you are. And if you're listening and engaging, you have to make eye contact. That's what I was going to say. Like, there's a difference between the two cultures when it comes to eye contact.
Yes. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in Africa where making eye contact is not a thing, there's also other body language that goes along with not making the eye contact, isn't there? Like you look very, like, is there any bowing that goes along with not making the eye contact?
Yeah, there's like a lot of, like the way you greet people who are older than you, you have to like, I would say maybe bow, curtsy, sign like a little something like that.
Right. So stay with me here for a moment because this is very interesting. So the not making eye contact is paired with very reverent body language.
Yeah.
A softening, a bowing, a little bit of a hunching over. Is that right?
Yeah.
So do you see how that's much different?
Yeah.
Than just not making eye contact with somebody?
Yes. I do.
So if you ever wanted to have kind of the perspective of somebody from Canada as to why would they think you're being sneaky if you don't look them in the eye, well, you're not pairing it with any other body language that would suggest that it's a positive thing, right?
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's just the lack of eye contact, which can look like you're avoiding something, you're hiding something. Yeah, so that's a really good example because I know what you mean. There's the casting of the eyes down, there's the bowing, right? That's a very reverent body posture. But just not looking at somebody in the eye has the opposite effect.
Yeah. So it can still come in this way, like I said before now, making a bold eye contact, like consistent eye contact, we see it as being a bit disrespectful. But, to show that you actually engage in that discussion is going to be done intermittently. Like you look at the person, you bring your eyes down, you look at the person. That's a part of the body language that goes with the eye contact.
Right. Yeah, I was going to touch on that. You don't need to have constant, laser focus on somebody's eyeballs. It's this give and take. It's this flow of, when you're talking, I'm looking at you. And then maybe when I start talking, I can kind of cast my eyes elsewhere and then come back to you. So it's a back and forth, an up and down, a give and take, right? It's not this constant. And here's a little tip before we move on from eye contact. If you find it hard to make eye contact with people, look between their eyes. Look here, like between the eyebrows or the top of the nose, because to the other person, it looks like you're making eye contact. But to you, it gives you a little bit of a breather away from the stress of making direct eye contact, but they can't tell the difference. So that's a good little tip for making eye contact. Sharon.
Yes, I was just going to add a little on, in fact, somebody already talked about it, the fact that there are some times where eye contact is actually acceptable, because in my language, there's something called ojulorowa, and that means like when you're having a conversation with someone, you have to look at the person, and it's usually the older people that would say that to you. So I know that there's always this part of you don't want to keep looking at the person because they're older than you, but sometimes they actually do expect you to look at them. And if you're looking away, they would specifically ask you to look at them.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you. Shalamite, you had your hand up for a while. Go ahead.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that, yes, in our for Africans, we aren't allowed to look right at the eyes of people. But then at a very young age, I noticed that it's not really that bad to look at someone in the eye as long as you're not being rude, or you're not you're not being uh I'll say you're not coming to them with it. Like, you're not being too confrontational with it. And it also depends on the person that you're making eye contact with. Some people might not like it, some people might like it. So you have to make sure who you're making eye contact with, how you are doing it, and will you be comfortable if that was done to you. So that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah. So most people, thank you for that. Most people who were born and raised in Canada would absolutely be expecting eye contact. Yeah. But what you just spoke of is called emotional intelligence. Being able to read a room, being able to be what we call a little bit street smart, like being able to figure out what the mood is or what people expect and respond appropriately to that. That's emotional intelligence, what you just described. And you're right. Again, back to being such a multicultural country, we have to have a lot of emotional intelligence. You know, if somebody is from China versus someone from Vietnam versus someone from Nigeria versus someone from India versus someone who grew up in, you know, remote New Brunswick, like I did, like you have to be able to read a room and pick up on cues of how people want to be treated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where body language comes in. 93% of the communication is nonverbal, remember?
Yeah.
So like eye contact, smiling, how you stand. Am I open? Am I closed? Am I approachable? Am I not? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all one big conversation and nobody has even said anything yet. Think about that. Whole conversation you can have and nobody's even said anything.
Yeah,
Have you ever walked in a room? Have you ever walked in a crowded room and you're like, ooh, something's going on in here?
Yeah.
Have you ever had that happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the energy. That's the nonverbal communication.
Very well. Very well. Like when we were growing up, my grandmother might not communicate with us for like over 30 minutes, like verbal communication, no verbal communication, but eye contact, body languages, we've all gotten everything she's saying. Like, he has commanded us, do this, do that. Just with eye and her body, we've taken everything.
Yes.
So
yes,
yeah.
Exactly. So has everybody got the memo of how important our body language is?
Yeah.
Good.
Very
good.
important.
Good. Okay.
Even I think I have to even comment on the handshaking. You know, it's actually a function of a situation whereby there is non-conformance. You want to give someone a hand and the person is declining, and all those. First thing you have to ask yourself a question: who am I actually shaking? What's my relationship with that person? You know, am I just meeting the person for the first time? Okay, so if it's someone I'm meeting for the first time, though it happens in milliseconds, because I should be aware enough to know that I'm gonna get that back from you. Like, if I'm stretching out my hand, I'm gonna pick it back. So it's now being self-aware. Know the environmental awareness as well. Know the person to an extent, because we all psychological beings. If I look at you, I can see you are smiling, you are welcoming. Come on. I know that to an extent, if I give you a hand, if I give out my hand, I'm gonna get it back. So that part we have to as well be a bit alert in terms of whom we are communicating. You know, I still say, who am I having a handshake with, and what's my relationship with the person has a long role to play here.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And then there's the nuances of handshakes, you know, to make sure that it's firm, but you're not crushing somebody's hand.
Very important.
But even worse than that is having the limp fish. Do never shake a hand like that. That is a very negative body language. You know, not doing any power trips, like turning the hand over so that you're on top. Like, none of that. That's a very bad first impression. And also, you should never shake hands over top of anything, not over top of a desk, not sideways. If you were, say, sitting beside a bunch of people and they start introducing themselves, you shouldn't shake hands. Stand up and turn and face them. It doesn't take long. Jump yourself to your feet, stand and face them and shake hands. So that's just a couple little etiquette things around shaking hands. Yeah. Okay. There was I want to talk a bit about soft skills versus hard skills before we stop. There was a Harvard-Stanford joint research done on what led to people's success, any people, all people, across any industries. And they determined that 85% of success is related to people's soft skills, their interpersonal skills, their ability to communicate with one another was overwhelmingly responsible for their success. Only 15% of people's success was determined to be because of their hard skills, their education, their training, their technical abilities, whatever. So again, like back to the verbal, nonverbal, very important to get good at nonverbal positive communication because it's 93% of the pie. Success. What is going to differentiate you between people who haven't taken my courses is that you're now aware of how much of a difference it can be in your life when you pay attention to the soft skills, the interpersonal skills, the consideration and care for other people. You're going to have skills that other people don't have. And that is what's going to make you successful long term. Anybody can go to school and study business. Christine, how many MBAs graduate from just St. John every year? A couple hundred? That's just St. John.
On the average, yeah.
You cannot out-educate people anymore. I know I said this before. I think I said this in week 1 when I saw you in person. It's because I want you to hear it. You cannot out-educate people anymore. Everybody has a master's degree. When I went to Miss Universe Canada, I was at one table with 3 female pilots and a PhD. How do you out-educate those people? You can't. So you have to show up and glow up in other ways. And that's the soft skills. And I'll tell you, when you walk in the world and your thought is, how do I make other people feel good? You're going to stand out. You're going to stand out because the way you then act in the world will be different than other people. Do you think most people walk around saying, how can I make things comfortable for somebody else? No. They're like me, 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 all day. Right? So when you train yourself to be the person that considers other people, you will have a different lot in life. I promise you that. I want to close with enthusiasm.
You made a great point there. You made a great point there. Now, for example, let me buttress it. Currently, you find out that we have robotics, we have AI, we have technologies that does most of the job this time around. So what most employers do now is they are more of a soft skill. Let me put it this way: situational person. You find out that you're applying for a particular job, instead of them asking for the job description, the core job description, they will sort of go to, how did you attend to this? How did you feel when you are in conflict with this person? Like situational, what have you done? Like they want to bring in you out. Yeah. How do you handle situations around? And you find, maybe 15%, like you said, of the question will now be on your hard skill. But it's basically leadership. It's basically how you handle your fellow human being. It's basically you being aware of yourself, you being aware of your environment, and you being aware of the organization you are in. So that is just what I want that.
Yeah, and I'm not diminishing education. It's important. I'm assuming we all realize that it's important. And in some instances, depending on what you want to do, it's necessary. But in the early 90s, a lot of corporations, if you were eager and you were motivated, you could start at the bottom and work your way right up to the top, right up to the corner suite, right up to the C offices. I know because I did it. I started on the phones in a call center, and by the time I was done, I was managing one entire division of a technology company, Innovation. So education has not always been what it is today. People learned from the bottom, and they got moved around and moved up based on their skills, their soft skills, their interpersonal, their relationships, their ability to learn on the fly. And companies are going back to that, by the way. So a lot of you who are at that age, just getting started, or in high school, soon to be going to university, understand that companies are going back to that. They're realizing that these big educations are not the be all and end all. We need to get into the people who are motivated, inspired, enthusiastic, energetic, willing to work hard, adaptive, willing to learn on the fly. That's what they're going to. Big companies in the States, and I'm sure it'll come to Canada. So it's going to come back full circle, where for the people who are relying solely on their big educations, their master's degree, their PhD, it is not going to be what gets them where they want to go. It's going to be what you guys are learning right here that makes the difference.
Sounds great, Lorraine. I know MK has a hand, and just before she speak, I wanted to mention that bodily odors is one of the three topics that we're supposed to talk about. And I know that we didn't start quite on time. I know it's a huge challenge for a lot of parents of teenage kids, because even when parents complain of bodily odors, they feel like, oh, well, all my friends smell alike, but it doesn't matter. I needed to help them explain why it's important to work on bodily odors and how that can be like a huge put off. So I'm going to stop now so that I allow MK ask her questions or contribute.
Yes.
And we do this. And this is also important because for those who are not here right now, because we're recording this session, they get a chance to hear that, because next week they'll have a new topic.
Yeah. Okay, MK, go ahead, and then we'll address the bodily odor.
I'll try to keep it as short as possible. The only one statement I wanted to say about the previous topic is the fact that in very summary form, it is a very common yet uncommon fact and a statement that is going around these days, that what puts you apart from rest of the crowd is how you make the other person feel.
Yes.
Right? Now that impacts a lot on your interpersonal skills, because you could be really smart and you would still lack the human part of you. That would be like, oh yes, that person helped me, but I'm not really too grateful to that because of how maybe they behaved with me. Right? If I'm serving some student, like that's my job, I serve students at university. So if I'm serving a student, I go on and put a smile, make sure they're comfortable, they're seated, right, before they start their query. And I have seen my coworkers doing the exact opposite, and I have seen students being more confused. So it's not just that if the person in front of me is lacking the interpersonal skills, it's also not conveying the message, because at that point my headspace is like, maybe this person in front of me is rude. Am I doing it right by bringing up the topic? So I think it's very, again, that's why I said it's very common yet uncommon fact that a lot of the times you're picked out of the crowd only because of how you make the person in front of you feel. That's about it. I'm sorry. I wanted to keep it short.
Yes. Yes. The answer is yes. You do want to work at making people feel comfortable. Yes. Okay, let's touch on bodily odor, because this is really important. I'm going to give you a real life example. So I was in corporate for many years, and my boss told me this story, and it is a great example of the impact of body odor. So there's a couple of things. If you work in a company, let's start with that scenario. You work in a company, or it's your first job or whatever, and you have body odor. You haven't used antiperspirant, deodorant. You've done nothing to, eliminate the smell. A couple of things are going to happen. the boss will find a reason to fire you, or they will find a way to transfer you out of their employ off to somebody else. Because I assure you, they do not want to have that conversation, because that can go sideways on them and they end up with an HR complaint. So you have to put yourself in the shoes of the other person. How uncomfortable is it to say to somebody, I'm sorry, there have been complaints about how you smell, and I need to tell you how you're going to handle it. That conversation will not happen. They will fire you or ship you off to be under somebody else's employ. So again, it's back to one of those things that, sure, it's your right to do it. No one can hold you down and force you to put on antiperspirant, but you're going to be held back and you will never know why. Nobody's going to tell you because they don't want the grief of an HR complaint. Does everybody hear that loud and clear? This is why I love what I do, because I don't work for anybody. So I can sit here and tell you that is what happens because I know, because I've seen it. So back to the story about my boss. She worked for a vice president when she was a new engineer at NBTEL at the time. This was going way back. And she adored her boss. He was a great mentor to her and she really enjoyed learning from him. But she said his body odor was so bad, she would do anything to not be in the same room with him because it was so offensive. And she said it was a real shame because she said, I adored him and I loved working for him, but that was such an awful thing like between them that it was very uncomfortable. So body odor, whether you're 10 or 110, it is unappealing. In North America, it is very unacceptable. In the workplace, in the school setting, like you should know that it is 100% unacceptable. People will just distance themselves from you and you won't even know why, but I'm here to tell you why. So do not think about going into your university years or the workplace without positively addressing your body odor. Now, that can go for too much scent as well. A lot of places, hospitals, schools, universities, and many offices have a no scent policy. So not only does that include body odor, it includes perfume, strong aftershaves or body washes like Axe, for example. That is a very strong odor. Again, you risk really offending people or worse, making them very sick. A lot of people have allergies and you get in a close environment like a school classroom or an office, and it can actually get pretty violent if people get sick and can't come to work because somebody doesn't obey the no scent policy. So how does it impact you? Well, when it comes time for somebody to get a promotion, who's getting the promotion? The person that disregards fellow students or employees by wearing heavy scents when they know somebody has allergies? No, that's pretty inconsiderate, right? So again, it's what it says about you. So body odor and heavy scents, no go.
Thank
Zara.
you very much. Zara?
Yeah, no. Yeah, Zara, do you have something to comment?
Yeah. On like the no scent policy, we also have one at our school, but like people usually disregard it and they just use perfume. But I know that's something that's gonna be like unacceptable in a workplace. So what would you like say is like an alternative that you can use instead of like perfumes? Because I use a lot of scents myself, but I don't know like what would make it too heavy or like unacceptable on something I can't use.
Yeah. If it's anything other than something that goes on, you like say in the shower and washes off, and there's just if you can smell it, it's too much. Because if you can smell it, someone else can smell it twice as much. And listen, I could take you in my bedroom right now and show you a whole tray full of expensive perfume. I love perfume. I do not wear it. If I'm going in to teach in person for Christine or going to do something, I do not wear it. I do not wear it. Because I don't want to make somebody else feel uncomfortable or make them sick.
Thanks, Lorraine. Just to add a bit to what you just said to Zara right now, I know when I worked at the YMCA, it was a very strong no scent policy, like either way, whether it's body odor or excessive perfumes. But one of the recommendations, and for someone like me who loves to use perfume, I was like, okay, so what do you expect me to do? And the recommendation that was given to me then was like, go find some no scent products because they're available in stores and pharmaceutical companies or like in stores. Yeah. So Zara, if you love perfumes but you want to be considerate, just like Lorraine said, if you're going into classrooms where people are going to be like in closed environments, you might want to use like those no scent product like soap and lotions and hair cream or things like that, just to be respectful of other, especially if you know someone has allergies to scents. So that would be a good recommendation.
Yeah. And I mean, things that are more on like the softer side, like pure, like vanilla, for example, or like staying away from the perfumey things, but more of like the super lights, like vanilla, or again, something that washes off your body, but there's just a subtle little hint of it. That's at least a happy medium, as they say.
Also, Lauren, you said you have a lot of perfume. Most of us love wearing perfumes. So he's now gonna. Does it call for? Okay, let me ask. Where do you wear it? When do you wear it?
I wear if I'm not going to anything that's work related. If I'm going out to a social function of my with friends, or I wear my perfume. Yeah.
So you must know where you're going to.
Yes. Exactly. Work related, I do not do it. If I'm speaking somewhere or teaching, like I said, for Christine, or I would not put it on. No.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I have one more question, please. So this is for the benefit of some of the youth with friends with body odors. So what's the best way? It's unfortunate that your friend couldn't tell her boss because, again, this is what anything could have happened. She could be fired, or there could be some dire consequences. But now, for youth who are growing up, we're encouraging them to be a voice for other people. We're encouraging them to help their friends and colleagues. Be leaders in their spaces. How would you recommend or advise them to talk to a friend who has bodily odors?
Yeah, in the coaching world, you never want to tell somebody something. You shouldn't do that. So in the coaching world, we use tactics like, so what I just learned today? I just learned that it can really hold you back when you get older. That, if you have offensive body odor, like it might even stop you from getting a job or getting promoted or getting the volunteer job. I just learned that at a course I went to this weekend. So that's a tactic. Finding ways to let them know that it's going to have a negative impact on their life rather than positive. And oh, by the way, no, it's such a hard conversation to have. Like nobody will even tell you. You just won't get accepted, or you just won't get into the job or whatever. So not being a telly, but letting them know what you have found out to be true is one really good tactic, because some people are going to do what they want to do and you're not changing their mind. But if you've at least planted the seed of, oh, by the way, this is what I learned about being in Canada. They do not want body odor because they're too nice to tell you. So they'll just ship you off somewhere else, So sharing what you know rather than telling people how it is would be my advice.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. And leading by example. If you're, this comes back to, if you're in a group of friends and you're the one who just smells neutral and nice and not offensive, let that speak for itself.
Sounds great. One of the things I did while I was in secondary school was actually buying antiperspirant and deodorants for those who had them. Like, oh, I just bought one for myself and I wanted to share one with you so that we could smell alike or something like that. So they see that they are receiving a gift without telling them that it's about the body odor, but letting them know that you bought one for yourself and wanted to buy the same for them without telling them. And if they used it and liked it, then most likely they may want to get another one for themselves.
Right. Yeah. But I would approach it like that, or as in just sharing information that you've learned. And
because sometimes some people are not aware that they smell.
That's right.
Because they're already, let me use the word, nose blind to their personal body odor. So when you say, it sounds foreign to them. I've seen people, again, back in secondary school, I mentioned like, oh, I didn't know that. Nobody ever told me. And this is like in high school, last year of high school. So all through the elementary, middle school, nobody mentioned it to them. And then they're about to get into the university. And then they're hearing it for the first time.
Right.
That's embarrassing.
Yes, absolutely. And again, back to, I can say what I want because my heart's in the right place and I genuinely want people to know the kinds of things that can hold them back. But there's so many scenarios that people are not going to tell you the realities because they don't feel comfortable. A lot of Canadians don't feel comfortable having intimate conversations, especially men. So they're just not going to go there with you. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you. So we're going to take just one more comment or questions from Irema.
Yeah.
Call it a night.
Sure. Go ahead.
I think that's a really smart way of communicating with them and like saying it but without offending them, like giving them a sign that they shouldn't do it anymore. Or you should start using the deodorant more. Or taking an extra shower a day. Like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's also, this reminds me of the stages of readiness to change. I don't want to get too deep, but in coaching, as a coach, it's really important when you're dealing with anybody is to understand where are they on the stage of readiness to change. Right? So I'll use smoking as an example. My father smoked. So he smoked since he was 17, 16. If I was to say to him, Dad, you shouldn't smoke. It's horrible for you. You're going to get lung cancer. You're going to get emphysema. You're going to die sooner than you should, blah, 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 blah. If he is not even in the contemplation stage, if he is not somewhat thinking about quitting, me badgering him about quitting and all the reasons why it's bad for him, that is only going to make him mad because he's not anywhere near the readiness to change stage, right? And that's the risk that you run when you try to tell somebody what they should or should not do when they're nowhere near even ready to hear it. So that's why just dropping little bombs about, oh, guess what I learned? Oh, guess what she said to me in this class? Oh, guess what I started doing and I really like it. That's a much better approach because then when they are ready, they will remember it. But if you get too bossy and telly with people, when they are ready to change, you're the last person they're going to listen to. Right? Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so very much. I know we've stayed beyond that time, but it was really interesting to try to hammer out all of these issues because they are very important to our teens. And the goal is to continue to make them better individuals for themselves and for those that they live and work around. So on that note, we're going to call this a wrap. I want to say a big thank you to Lorraine again for making our time in the evenings to talk with empowered striders, as I call them now.
Yes.
So, and that note, I want to say thank you to everyone who stayed on until this time, and then we look forward to seeing you on Saturday in person for your photo shoots and some other sessions that comes with it with Ponce. So it's going
You're
to be
gonna
very
love that,
interesting.
guys. Yeah, you're gonna have a lot of fun. Ponce is amazing, so have a good time.